Hello, class. Today we're going to be looking at management and care of rabbits. Now, last week we looked at the uses and breeds of rabbits, right? And today we're now going to look at the management and care of rabbits. So here are the objectives for today. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to determine the appropriate housing for a rabbit, explain the importance of feeding rabbit with a suitable diet, list the three groups of feed an ideal rabbit diet should consist of, explain how each group of feed is fed to rabbits. Explain the feeding rate of commercial feed for rabbits at different ages, from weaning to adult, and to identify different feeds that are fed to rabbits. These are some terms that you're going to hear: weaning, the removal of the young from the mother; roughage is a fibrous indigestible material in vegetable foodstuff which aid the passage of food and waste products through the gut, and the gut is the digestive tract. Now, here's a little engagement activity. It's called Don't Do It. We are not toys. We are not disposable. We're not starter pets. We're not low maintenance. We are live animals with feelings. We have specific needs and require long term care and management. So, let us now look at or explore the different management and care of rabbits. And the first one we're going to look at is housing. Now, do you think that rabbits need a house? Do you think they need a house? The same way humans need a house, do you think a rabbit needs a house? Think about it. Can you name the type of housing that rabbits are kept in? What are some different housing that rabbits are kept in? Okay, so now let us explore rabbit housing. Housing can be evaluated with a few factors. Ventilation, that means air circulating through the house. Size, is the house big enough to hold the rabbit that you're actually rearing? Material, what type of material is used to make the house? Is it metal? Is it board? Is it galvanized? Temperature, what is the temperature like for the house? If you don't have proper ventilation and you put the house in a very hot area, that means you're going to end up with problems in your rabbits with heat. And protection, what kind of protection is this housing providing for your rabbits? Ventilation is the process of moving air above and below the cage to decrease temperature and ammonia odor. When the ammonia can be toxic to the respiratory system of rabbits, which can be damaging to a rabbit's respiratory system. This can be accomplished naturally or mechanically, but you must ensure the direct drafts are not imposed on the rabbit. So don't draft is when cold air is getting in. So don't have direct draft imposing on the rabbits. The ideal temperature for an adult rabbit environment is 45 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 to 21 degrees Celsius. That's the ideal temperature for an adult rabbit's environment. And remember that Jamaica is a tropical country and rabbits have a lot of fur. So, which means they're going to get hot pretty quickly because of our climate. So you can't have them in a housing that is above 7 to 21 or above 21 degrees Celsius. It should be between 7 and 21 degrees Celsius. So ensure that you have proper ventilation for air to pass through. The housing dimension. So pen and cage size. The size of the cage should be determined by the size and the function of the rabbit. Your rabbit's living space should include an enclosed sleeping area, space for a litter tray, and feed and water bowls, and room to move about. It is essential that your rabbit has the room to stretch in all directions. A living space that's too small can affect your rabbit's health, causing spine problems, muscle wastage, and obesity. They can't move about properly, they're just gonna gain a lot of weight. A good minimum size cage is 30 inches by 30 inches by 24 inches. So it's gonna be 30 inches high, 30 inches wide, and 30 inches wide, 30 inches long, and 24 inches high for a rabbit who is approximately 5 to 6 pounds at adult size. So obviously, if your rabbit is bigger, a larger cage is needed. If you have a kit, think about how big it will get when it is an adult. Then the type of rabbit housing. Standing hutches, this system is commonly used by a beginner producer or those with fewer animals. It is also ideal for testing out the rabbit market in an area. It is strongly recommended that you start out with a system such as this. So the standing hutches, positive things about the standing hutch is that it is relatively low cost to build. It is ideal for a small production. Smaller units can be made portable with the addition of wheels. Negatives, because there is no exterior barn structure, choice of materials are essential and maintenance for the hutch is constant. Then we talk about the stacked cages, where you stack the cages on top of each other. This system can be used outside. Proper ventilation and airflow, which are critical for this system to work properly. However, it is preferably an indoor method because if you're going to stack the cages outdoors, you need to actually make a structure over them to keep excess sunlight, water, and all that from getting in there. Positives for the stacked cages, it allows for a larger production while using less floor space because the cages are stacked. The regulated environment aids in reaching your rabbit's production potential as well. So the negatives are that it tends to be a more costly unit to purchase and make. Indoor production requires airflow with air conditioners and extraction units. It can be costly to maintain and requires a greater amount of cleaning. So consider all of those factors before you actually select the type of housing for your rabbit. Suspended cages with barn cover. This is the most common type of rabbit housing for larger commercial rabbit productions. So you actually have a suspended cage with barn cover over it. It almost looks like a house, right, with cages underneath it. Positives is that the nature of this layout allows for reduced cleaning time, lower cost to maintain, and make for easy expansion. Negatives, rabbits are more vulnerable to the elements than with an inside production, right? So you may end up with attack from probably an animal like a dog or a cat. So you have to be careful with these suspended cages with barn cover, but with proper monitoring and proper protection, it can work. Then we move on from housing to feeding. Do you think it is important to feed a healthy diet to your rabbits? The same way we need food from the different food groups. Do you think the rabbit needs food from the different food groups as well? Now state a reason for your answer. Why do you think it is important to feed a healthy diet to rabbits? All right, let us explore feeding. The importance of feeding rabbit with a suitable diet, like all other farm animals, rabbits need a suitable diet to grow, develop, and reproduce. So they need to have a balanced diet, right? So their rations should be balanced, right? So equal amount, giving them food from different food groups, your proteins, your vegetables and fruits, right? Types of feed fed to rabbits. Do you know the types of feed fed to rabbits? Name as many types as you can. So, what are some types of feed that you feed to your rabbits or you've seen someone feed to their rabbits? All right. I think that we should have, come up with something by now. An ideal diet consists of green feed, root crops, and commercial pellets or concentrates. Green feeds and root crops contain all the proteins, carbohydrates, minerals, and vitamins that rabbits need, but they are not always available in the required quantity and quality as compared with commercially available pellets. So what you realize is that you're feeding your rabbits on all of these green feed and root crops, and even though they contain all the protein, carbohydrate, minerals, and vitamins that the rabbit need, they may not contain them, right, in the required quantity as well as quality. So it might be that the crop is too old and at that stage of growth, it does converted, to an unpalatable feed. It's not tasty and it doesn't contain enough of the required nutrients as the commercially available pellets. And commercial pellets are these they're actually formulated in feed mills, and they place the right amount of protein, carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins, right? They put all of those in there so the rabbits will have a balanced diet. Now, the domesticated rabbit is a very rapid grower. It is a meat animal and he must be fed in much the same manner as a beef animal. This should be kept in mind at all times. That means that he needs a balanced ration composed of the proper elements of concentrates, roughage, and succulent food. It has always seemed to me that the reason why so many people have trouble with their rabbits is that they do not take this fact into consideration. They try to feed green food alone, or grain alone, or hay alone, and expect the rabbit to get along famously on such a ration. If you stop to think that no man could live on oats alone and make a good development, you will begin to see why the rabbits cannot be expected to do something that is contrary to nature. So they need to have a variation in their diet. You can't feed them on one thing all the time and expect them to be very productive. Green feed or herbage. These are the types of feed that are fed to rabbits now that we're looking at. Green feed or herbage. These consist of grasses, spinach, pak choy, cabbage, vines of crops, and common weeds like watergrass and railway daisy. It is important to wilt these green feed for about 8 to 10 hours before feeding to rabbits. Why do you think you need to wilt them? This reduces the moisture content, which if it is too high can cause the rabbits to get diarrhea or scouring. Rabbits will also eat dried grasses and can digest cellulose in their cecum. And when we get to digestion, you will learn all about the cecum and the cellulose. Cellulose is fiber. Cellulose lines the cell wall of plants, right? And the front teeth of a rabbit are called incisors. If you look at the front teeth of a rabbit, you will realize that these are ideal for cutting into root crops. So wild rabbits are often a nuisance to root crop farmers since they burrow underground and destroy their crops. So if you're a person who is planting sweet potato and those things, rabbits will burrow underground and eat them out. Rabbits enjoy eating sweet potatoes, carrots, turnips, and radishes. You must not feed Irish potato or tomato leaves to rabbits because they contain chemicals that can be toxic. Okay, so even though you can feed the sweet potato leaves to your rabbits, don't feed them with Irish potato leaves, Irish for that matter, and tomato leaves because they are toxic. Commercial pellets or concentrate is another feed. These are available from most feed suppliers and provide a balanced diet but may prove expensive if not supplemented by green feeds and root crops. A pellet form of concentrate is used since more powdery forms will be difficult for the rabbit to eat and may make it sneeze. Pregnant does and young rabbits should be given larger food rations. Why do you think that pregnant does and young rabbits should be given a larger food ration? Think about it. Why do you think we need to provide these rabbits with a larger ration? The pregnant does, remember that they are actually carrying a fetus that needs to be fed, right? So you need to provide them with more proteins, more vitamins and minerals because they need to provide for their bodies as well as the fetus that is growing inside of them. And the young rabbits, because they're actively growing, you need to provide them with more proteins and give them food at leisure. So don't restrict their food, give them as much as they need. That's for the young rabbits now. Sometimes you have to restrict the pregnant doe a little, but still give her the required nutrients for her body as well as for the unborn fetus. Okay, then other foods. Rabbits can eat some household scraps like bread and cereal based food. However, they should not be given meat products or greasy foods because their digestive system can easily be upset. Rabbits are herbivores, they're not monogastric, right? So they don't digest meat because they're not meat eaters, they're herbivores, they eat plant materials. So be careful and do not feed meat products or greasy foods to your rabbits because it can upset their digestive system, cause them to have diarrhea or scoring. Okay, and even feeding them the green food that is not wilted can cause diarrhea or scoring, and scouring is loose running feces, right? So that can cause them to lose excess water and become dehydrated, and that can also cause the death of your rabbits as well. There's also some plants they call roughages like dried grass that can also be fed to them. But it's not very nutritious, right? It's mostly carbohydrate that is in it. Then we have water. Water, clean water should be made available. And water is a nutrient, okay? Water is a nutrient because nutrients cannot be dissolved or absorbed into the body without water. So clean water should be available all the time. Those which are the females with litters, so lactating those that are producing milk, so litters especially should have plenty of water to enable them to produce milk. If you're not giving your lactating those that have litters, right? If you're not giving them enough water, they will not be able to produce enough milk to feed their young. Never, and I repeat, never leave water that has been fouled by dirt, droppings, or urine, because dirty water is one of the surest ways of spreading diseases. And when we get to the different types of diseases and pests that affect rabbits, we will understand why we should always practice proper hygiene and to ensure that their water and food is always clean and free from disease organisms. Now, there's also something called additional minerals that we need to provide for our rabbits because they don't get it from the food they eat. Now, additional minerals, when rabbits are in the wild, they get extra minerals from the soil and rocks. When reared in hutches, they should be provided with extra minerals in the form of mineral licks or blocks of mineral salts because remember, a lot of times when they lack minerals, they tend to get deficiencies. Okay, so these help in the maintenance of bones and teeth and are very important to pregnant and lactating those and their young. So when the young is developing, they need to have healthy bones and teeth, and minerals do that. So when you don't have the minerals, some end up with brittle bones because they're lacking in certain minerals, right? And feeding rate for commercial pellets. That's the last thing we're going to look at today. Feeding rate for commercial pellets. Rabbits should be fed in the morning and in the evening. And the commercial pellets are the ones that you buy from the farm store that are formulated. They're made in feed mills, right? And they have all the required nutrients, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the vitamins, the minerals, right? Rabbits should be fed in the morning and in the evening. So try to feed your rabbits twice per day. They are nocturnal animals and are more active at night, so they should be given their heavier meal in the evening. So you give them a certain amount of feed in the morning and you give them more in the evening. Different amounts of commercial feeds are needed by rabbits at different ages, as you will see from table on the next slide. All right. Now I must also mention that most times when you're feeding them with commercial pellets, it's best to have a measurement, which is what we're going to look at in the table. Okay, and sometimes you can substitute the commercial pellets with other food stuff for them. All right, so you can actually give them the commercial pellets in the morning and provide them with the green feed in the evening. So you give them more in the evening than in the morning because they're more active at night. They're nocturnal, they see better in the night. Now look at the feeding rate for commercial pellets on this slide. The first thing you need to consider is the age of the rabbit and the weight of pellets in grams per day. So how much grams of the pellet you're going to give to these rabbits based on their age. From weaning to 3 months, so after you remove the young from the mother, and you learn about weaning when we get to reproduction. So from weaning to 3 months, you give them as much as they want. From 3 to 4 months, you give them 100 grams per rabbit. So if you have 5 rabbits in there, that is 3 to 4 months, it is going to be 500 grams that you need to give them because each rabbit requires 100 grams per day. If the rabbit is 4 to 5 months, you give each rabbit 120 grams per rabbit per day. And when they get to adult age, 5 months or older, you give them 140 grams per rabbit. So remember, if you have 10 rabbits in a hutch and they are all adults, you're going to multiply 140 grams by 10, right? To get the total amount that you need to give to these 10 rabbits. So when you add 10 to that, you get 1,400. So you're going to need 1,400 grams of pellets for the 10 adult rabbits. And this brings us to the end of today's lesson. I do hope that you have learned something from this lesson today. And as per usual, an activity will follow.